If there's one person that's deserving of more recognition, of promotion of mountain culture, it's Lynn Martel. Yeah. So, what she's going to read something from this collection, and I can't really introduce it. She's going to do that because the collection spans just about the whole gamut of things you can do in the high places, in the high adventure, and she writes about it beautifully. Please put her together for Lynn Martel, Tales and Trails.
Okay. He told me to put my foot on it like Mick Jagger, but I figured I'm dressed more like Courtney Love. I credit to the Rocky Mountain Outlook because I've been writing part-time for that newspaper for 12 years, and they let me write about anything I want, and that's really wonderful for a writer. I do also take assignments. Sometimes editors send me to do things I wouldn't choose to do, and that's what I'm going to read about, one of those little outings where it was not my choice to do this outing. And I don't always write about the high places when I get sent to go somewhere deep underground. So I'm going to take my glasses off to read this, and it's going to make it a whole lot more exciting for me because I can't see a thing. So I am crawling on hands and knees on a lumpy brown dirt floor. At least my headlamp beam makes it appear brown. The uneven surface is littered with rocks and boulders, everything smothered in a fine dust that permeates the cool air. The floor, the boulders that restrict and channel my course of travel, the walls, the low vaulted stone ceiling. I am grateful for my knee pads and for my helmet. I'm so absorbed by the floor that I don't look ahead often enough to avoid collision with the irregular ceiling. Not that I would see much anyway. My surroundings are limited to whatever is illuminated by the narrow beam of light. Rounding a bend, I lose sight of my companions. For a very long minute, I can't even hear them. Just as space is obscured to me, so is time. I have no sense of the hour, the day of the week, what season it might be outside my underground environ. Even through rubber-palmed gloves, the ground feels cold and clammy as I weave around small puddles like an oversized toddler. Eventually, I rejoin the group, their light beams illuminating the shadowy, otherworldly cavern. So there's a tour company called Canmore Caverns, and they do tours in Grotto Mountain. And you just go hiking for like half an hour in the bottom part of Grotto Mountain, and then you get to the entrance of the cave, and you get all duded up to go into the cave. As we donned our tour-supplied coveralls, climbing harnesses, knee pads, and miner's lamp-equipped helmets, Eli, he was our guide, he described how the Pleistocene glaciations of the past 1.6 million years caused meltwater to carve out the 4-kilometer-long Rat's Nest cave system in the soft limestone. With a constant air temperature of 4.5 degrees Celsius and descending 245 meters below its entrance, Canada's 11th longest caves, of caves stretching more than 440 meters, is also the Canadian Rockies' warmest. Halfway along our hike up through the forest, Eli had stopped. We're standing 30 meters above the cave's largest room, the Grand Gallery, he said. How do you map a cave? I asked. Compass and measuring tape, he replied. Stepping through the creaky access gate, Eli gave us the cave rules. Keep your head low, don't try to move too quickly, and don't leave anything behind. In the entrance, he pointed out ancient red pictographs on the wall, then gestured toward a dark, bottomless hole. The Bone Bed Pit contains artifacts including 3,000-year-old arrowheads, likely left behind by Aboriginal peoples seeking shelter in the entranceway. To preserve this important paleontological site from rope-equipped souvenir seekers, in 1987, 1 square mile around the entrance was designated a provincial historic site, complete with locked access gate. Stooping and lurching deeper into the cave, Eli demonstrated how to clip ourselves into the safety rope as we slid down a smooth, polished rock ramp into the next chamber. Regrouping in a classroom-sized space, he pointed to another hole in the floor, telling us we'd exit the cave through there later. It looked pretty darn small. As we moved to the next section, the roof began slanting lower and lower and lower until we stopped, wedged on our sides into a passage barely a meter at its highest. After clipping himself into a climbing anchor permanently bolted into the rock, Eli supervised as one by one we clipped into the double safety rope system to rappel down into a 20-meter vertical abyss. Relieved to be released from my cramped position, at my turn, I eagerly lowered myself into the industrial elevator-sized pit, walled with moist, slick rock. With everyone down the well hole, we reached our first optional small squeeze. That's caving lingo for a small, constricted space. It's more fun if you go head first, Eli suggested. Yeah, that's how I felt too. Okay, head first, you say. Okay, chirped Angelina. She's one of the other people in the group. She was already slithering on her belly through a passage at floor level, just high enough to swallow her head, her torso, her legs, and finally her feet. Not quite head first. I wiggled my way through the crawl space sideways, employing a crab-like maneuver that got me onto a shelf that dropped under my left leg like a staircase step. I felt grateful for years of yoga classes. Entering the 5-way chamber, Eli suggested we all remember this room, since it was the only access to the cave exit. As he said this, I realized we were immersed in a labyrinth with countless dead ends and few clues for the untrained eye to landmark. My perception was distorted. Distance was difficult to judge. I was certain my boots would slip in places they didn't, and the floor appeared steeper than it actually was. With no plants, no wind, no sky, and no horizon, the world was reduced to what appeared directly in front of our light bulbs. Then we reached the laundry chute. This is our next optional squeeze, Eli announced. Oh, joy. Anyone who didn't feel comfortable could wait at that spot for 15 minutes until the group looped back up. He described a body-sized vertical tube that dropped for 3 meters, then dog-legged into a 45-degree, equally snug 6-meter tunnel before opening into the next standable room. 30 feet in 30 seconds, Eli grinned with a wink. I'm sure you'll all fit. While the others jostled to go first, and I was on this trip with total strangers, I wondered why I couldn't be the kind of person content to seek out simple fun, rather than good grief, this is a really uncomfortable challenge kind of fun. Determined not to be left alone, I settled midway into the queue with giant butterflies lurching in my gut. Sliding up to the hole, Irem, one of the other cavers, he dropped one leg down, followed by the other. With his arms reaching one above and one below him, he inched his body down into a space so constricted I could not see beyond him as he was swallowed by the earth. My turn. While I rationally understood that I could be free of the squeeze in less than a minute, and that hundreds of cavers much larger than my body had previously fit through, I battled my imagination. Unlike negotiating some alpine terrain where a mistake could guarantee a death fall, I recognized the hazards of this challenge existed largely in my mind. I knew I must banish all thoughts of things beyond my control, mainly the ridiculously tiny possibility of an earth tremor, which was really the only thing that could realistically, on this guided tour, trap me to suffer an unthinkable fate. Grateful for my athletic strengths, I soon realized I was even more thankful for how 20 years of outdoor challenges had prepared me for the mental control this situation demanded of me. I lowered myself into the shaft, at times so tight I was forced to turn my head sideways to make space for the headlamp protruding from it. I moved a lot by feel, since I was rarely able to see my next footstep. For a brief moment, the passage opened large enough for me to sit. Then I shimmied into the chute section and quickly experienced the wedgie Eli had promised.
That was Lynn Martel, Tales and Trails.